Hello, everyone, and welcome to Live Signing. I'm Danny Valdez, and with us today is Judge Jeanine Pirro for the live signing of her new book, Don't Lie to Me and Stop Trying to Steal Our Freedom. Judge Jeanine is a highly respected judge, former district attorney, legal commentator, author, and champion of women's rights. Her show, Judge Jeanine Pirro, won an Emmy. Judge Jeanine, welcome, and are you ready to sign some books?
I am ready to sign books, specifically this book. And I must tell you that there is no better time to write a book or to have one ready for tomorrow than now. I mean, with the death of Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, there's no question that everyone is out there dug in deep in if we thought the presidential election was crazy, it's going to get much crazier over the next few weeks. So I wrote the book, Don't Lie to Me, because I was tired of the lies. And as someone who was a Superior Court judge, I used to hate it when people lied to me. And, all of us kind of get a sense when someone's lying. You really, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't fit in, or, you just get a feeling. I mean, there's no objective test that you can use, no criteria, but you just know it doesn't ring true. And it's really the third in my trilogy of liars, leakers, and liberals. And we did a premiere signing on that one. And then we did Radicals, Resistance, and Revenge. And that was about the radicals resisting President Trump and the revenge for not getting Hillary elected. And of course, Liars, Leakers, Liberals was about the Russia collusion. And then Don't Lie to Me is really about all the lies that they've been putting forth to try to get us to do what they want us to do. And I was on Law Review. I have hundreds of footnotes in this thing. And I'm not saying the big deal. I just know footnotes are important.
Sure.
You have an argument with someone, hit them with a footnote.
I feel like I'd be terrified to argue with you for some reason.
I don't know why people say that.
Hey, when I was little, I thought I was going to be a judge because I loved to argue and make a case, as my mother will tell you through tears. But I also loved the idea of bringing clarity, reconciliation. I always saw it as a way to help and actually bring healing to the world. Is that what made you kind of decide to go down this path in the first place?
Well, I got to tell you, to me, it's a funny story. I used to watch Perry Mason, and I loved Perry Mason. But Perry Mason was a defense attorney. And then once I got a little older and a little smarter, I realized that the DA, Hamilton Berger, I kept saying, how did this guy keep getting reelected? He lost every case to Perry Mason. It was always that mistaken identification, or someone in the back bench of the courtroom would say, I did it, when the defendant, the accused, wasn't the one who did it. But no, I always wanted, to me, a level playing field. And I always thought that victims, were hurt unjustifiably. And as I grew up and then in my own career, I was more about the victim and making the victim, to the extent I could, whole again. So I started the first domestic violence unit in the country. And then the first internet pedophile sting operations on the internet.
Did you say the first domestic violence unit in the country?
Yes.
Wow.
It was 1978. I'm no spring chicken.
Wow.
And and people would say to me, even judges, why don't you go to family court? This is a criminal court. Yeah. And the law had just changed that a woman could choose family court or criminal court. And women were getting beaten and getting killed. And, the society felt that whatever happened in the family should stay in the family. And I didn't believe that. And my family, I had a very normal upbringing in small town in upstate New York. My mother loved my father loved my mother. And so it was all foreign to me. So I was a real crusader on that. And it was one of 4 programs funded by the Department of Justice. And I think it was the only one that survived. But I went all over the country setting up pilot programs like that. And I lived through all the kind of discrimination against women, probably sex was better, and so that's why she stayed, or she asked for it, or if she didn't cook dinner, it wasn't right, or if she'd pray, she'd be a better wife. But anyway, that's the subject of another book. This is my 7th book, Don't Lie to Me. And as I'm talking to you, I want you to know I'm signing these book plates. Yeah. So you buy a book, you'll get a signature.
Yeah, and it's actually her signature. We don't do a rolled stamp here where, I've done that in the past. I've been so disappointed. You go to buy an autograph book and you can clearly tell it's not the person's actual signature and you wonder why you paid extra
I'm
for
going to
it.
show it to you when I'm done. You could tell I'm doing it. And I'm thrilled to do it. You know, I'm thrilled that people are interested in buying the book. It is, you know, I'm a person of a lot of passion and I believe in justice. And whether it's in the criminal courtroom or whether it's in Washington, we need fairness and we need equity. I mean, we need to,
Yeah.
you know, we need to have a country where people don't lie to us. And so I put light, you know, to the darkness and truth, you know, to the lies. So
I love that passion. That I just resonate with that. I love, again, clarity. I love your word equity. Would you mind, you know, it's rare that I get to talk to a judge and a judge who's accomplished as much as you have. I mean, gosh, the first, you know, domestic violence unit in the country, and we could go on. Like, what does equity mean to you?
well, you know, nobody is entitled to anything, but we're entitled to justice and a level playing field.
Yeah.
And to me, equity is about making sure that people are treated fairly and equitably, and that nothing about you is cause for someone else to either discriminate against you or to treat you unfairly. And so my passion has always been for the silent victims of crime. You
Yeah.
know, they die unannounced, unheralded, and even the system itself is called the criminal justice system. You know, I think it should be called the victim's justice system.
Wow.
The victim who never chose to be a part of the system in the first place. It's the criminal who selects the victim. And all of a sudden, like a thunderbolt from the sky, the victim ends up, you know, living this nightmare. But it's not
Yeah.
just the victim. It's the people who love him or her. You
Wow.
know, it's the friends, it's the community, and the ripple effect is great. And so my passion in my office was to make sure that we tried to the extent we could to make the victim whole again.
Wow.
And if the victim were dead, we couldn't do that,
Yeah.
but we could at least get justice. We could be the avengers in that case
Wow.
for the family who lost everything.
Yes. Well, for those of you who are just tuning in, and there's a lot of people here, for the next hour, Judge Jeanine is going to be signing books and answering as many of your questions as possible. And for those who have just tuned in and have not yet purchased a book, you still have time to order an autographed copy and submit a question to the judge. Just click over to premiercollectibles.com/don't lie to order your copy. So, Judge Jeanine, it's almost like
Every time I complete a page, I'm showing you.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's almost
Okay,
like the title is in all caps. Don't lie to me. Who's
Yeah.
lying? Why did you write this book? Why now?
Well, I wrote the book because I used to say to criminals who would come in front of me, to the accused, if I felt they were lying, you know, I would just say to them from the bench, you know, don't lie to me. You know, and it was always kind of a raised inflection, you know, don't lie to me. Or a witness in the witness well right next to me to my left. I hate it when people lie. And the American people don't deserve to be lied to. The American people deserve the truth, especially in times when we are so divided. And what's happening in this country is a schism. And, you know, you can choose sides. And my God, I mean, this is a democracy, freedom of speech. You can say whatever you want, but all of a sudden you can't. And they're trying to take away our free speech in the First Amendment. Political correctness is the opposite of free speech. And I'm telling you, I see people who lose their jobs because they're politically incorrect or say something that triggers people. Since when is the truth or the ability to speak truth subjected to a test of how people react to it? This isn't a third world country. This isn't Russia. We say what we want. Even the United States Supreme Court has affirmed the fact that hate speech is protected. Otherwise, what's the point? You can hate each other. You can condemn other people. You know, there's libel, there's slander laws, there's defamation. But at the same time, I can't lose my job or shouldn't have to lose my job because people are triggered by my presence or uncomfortable with me being there. That's wrong. That's wrong. So I wrote Don't Lie to Me because after liars, leakers, and liberals with the FBI, the Department of Justice, and the FISA court, and the lies that were presented to the FISA court, who was either complicit or incompetent. Complicit because they issued the order to spy through Carter Page on the Trump campaign, and then 3 more orders, okay, where they extended the wiretap. I mean, that's unacceptable. And then the radicals who resisted President Trump because their revenge over Hillary Clinton not making it across the finish line. And I thought that would be it. But now the lies about the pandemic, and I talk about this in the book. Okay, how about this? You can buy alcohol, you can buy weed, but don't you dare go to work, or don't you dare go to church. In Nevada, the United States Supreme Court says, we can open the casinos, okay? We can open the movie theaters, but don't you dare go to church in greater than 50, or we're going to stop it.
Yeah.
This is a country founded on Judeo-Christian ethics. You cannot stop that.
Yeah. Wow. Well, we have a lot of people. I have so many personal questions, but a lot of people have bought your book and have bought the right to ask you some of these questions. So
okay,
are you ready to jump to some of those?
Absolutely. Look forward to them.
Great. Let's go to David from North Carolina. He says, love your show. What's the biggest challenge you think is ahead for our country in the next 5 years?
I think the biggest challenge is bringing the country together. And for us to recognize that as Americans, we're very special people. They blame this all on Donald Trump. The left says, if Donald Trump isn't there, we'll be all together, one happy family. That's a lie. That is an absolute lie, because Donald Trump has done more for, let's say, the African-American community than even an African-American president. More jobs for African-Americans, the lowest unemployment ever, permanent funding for historically Black colleges and universities, permanent funding, as well as the First Step program, which allows those in prison to be able to get out on crimes that are not violent crimes, where their period in prison has been too long. A Democrat couldn't get that passed. Obama didn't get it passed. Clinton put them all in jail, through Joe Biden and Joe Biden's crime bill, which put a whole generation of young Blacks in prison, and calling them predators and 3 strikes and you're out. So I think that coming together is going to have to happen. They're having a hissy fit on the left, and they're getting away with it. And I think that what's important, John, is that as they get away with it, they become emboldened. Just like when we defund the police, criminals become emboldened. If they can protest, tear down a business, empty out a store on Fifth Avenue in Manhattan with no consequence, they're going to continue the rioting and the chaos until they bring in socialism. And they have to be stopped. And once they're stopped, once there are consequences, then we can get back to going about the business of America and Donald Trump providing the jobs and the economy that America has never seen before.
Alicia from Friendswood, Texas. Would you consider running for office?
Alicia, I ran for office 5 times.
Oh.
It is a blood sport. Okay.
Wow.
In New York, it is a blood sport. And I have the scars to prove it. And I will never run for office again.
Can you tell about some of your pros and cons, some of your experience there, some stories even?
Sure, I'll be happy to tell them to you. But, I had to run for judge. I was the first woman elected to county court bench in the history of my county. Mm-hmm. And I had to run for district attorney. And I ran for district attorney 3 times and won. And then I ran for attorney general statewide in New York and lost to Andrew Cuomo, who's now the governor of New York. And his father, of course, was the governor of New York. And New York is a Democrat state. But it was almost as though after 12 years as the district attorney and 15 years as an assistant DA, which was the best job in the world, without a doubt, the best job in the world. because you could prioritize the crimes, that you thought should be handled seriously or more seriously.
Yeah.
But for me, I imposed a self-imposed term limit. I said, you know what, Jeanine, you've done it enough. You pretty much did a lot, and it's time to move on. So I moved on to the next chapter, which was syndicated television with Warner Brothers, and now with Fox, and I now have a radio show with WABC, and I'm now on my 7th book.
Is
So,
television to me seems more exciting and less violent than politics. What's your take?
well, it is. But there's something I have to tell you about politics. When you have the fire in the belly, it is a war 24/7. It is a
Yeah.
war, and you never know who's coming at you, and the disappointments are tremendous. Um, I was, and I don't know how to say this, as a DA. I mean, I was right down the line. My staff was right down the line. Nobody got a benefit. Nobody was disadvantaged. I mean, as a Republican in a Democrat county, I kept getting elected and reelected, elected and reelected, because I was fair.
Yeah.
I think some of the games are not so fair. And, I think, don't worry about me. Let's worry about the woman who's going to go to that the president is nominating for Supreme Court. He said it's going to be a woman. He's going to nominate her Friday or Saturday. And on my show, Justice with Judge Jeanine, on Saturday night, we'll be all over this. That woman, whomever she is going to go through a war. There will be such blasphemy that we will never see. We will never have heard anything like it in a Supreme Court nomination review. And if Brett Kavanaugh is a serial rapist, which of course is absurd and a lie, the left lying to you again in my book too. I shudder to think what they're going to say about whatever brilliant woman the president selects, and they're all brilliant.
Karen from Acton, California asks, how do we hold those people at the highest level of government responsible for the crimes they commit?
Was that Karen you said?
Karen, yeah.
Karen. I wish I had the answer, Karen. I am as frustrated as you are. I have spent 32 years in the justice system. I'm a believer. I really am. I'm a believer. I believe in truth and justice and the American way, just the way I sign off on my show. I believe in law and order. I believe in justice and equity. It infuriates me when people violate the law, especially when they're at the top. I wrote a book called He Killed Them All. It was about a guy named Robert Durst. You may or may not have heard of him, but I believed he was a serial murderer, and it was a cold case that I handled as district attorney. And I got dragged through the mud by everybody on it, but I was right. In the end, I was right. He admitted to killing them all.
Wow.
But people with money, people with power tend not to be able to be prosecuted as easily. And that infuriates me. It infuriates me. We need not just people in the Justice Department, but prosecutors around the country who are willing to put their allegations and their proof where their allegations are and go for it. I don't want any of this assessment. Well, can I get a jury verdict? I don't care. If you have the evidence, go for it. If the jury says no, so be it. Your job is not to test the waters like a politician. And I'm going to, Karen, add to that. I'm sorry, I'm going to make this a long answer.
Do it.
What we're seeing now are district attorneys across the country who are being funded by socialist organizations. And those district attorneys that we're seeing in St. Louis, where is it the McChrystals? Who took a gun out when the protesters were coming down the street. They can't even defend themselves. And you've got a district attorney there who wants to go after them for exercising their Second Amendment rights. And yet DAs in Portland don't want to prosecute protesters who were burning buildings, trying to kill people in federal courthouses, locking the doors, destroying property, assaulting people. They're getting away with it. Now we're seeing prosecutors of that ilk being put in. Don't just think that the president is the most important, or the only important, I should say, election. Your local DA is very important. Your state attorney general is very important. Otherwise, there is no law and order, and there is absolutely total anarchy. And that's the problem.
Why do you think that, what does money actually buy when it comes to, you know, a more drawn out legal process, et cetera? Is it just smarter lawyers? What exactly is it?
First, let me say this. I as someone, you know, who knows this business, a lot of the legal aid attorneys and the public defenders are some of the smartest people around. Don't underestimate them because they're free. They know the system, they know the judges, they know how it works.
Sure.
But what we're seeing with people of money is that they can afford to make motion after motion after motion after motion.
Yeah.
Then they can afford to do all kinds of jury selection focus groups. Who's the person we want in a jury? Like, I tried cases. I was the first woman to prosecute a homicide case in the history of my county. They didn't think women could go for the jugular. So anyway, so I started trying the case, and there was a lot of pressure because I knew that if I didn't win, the women behind me wouldn't get a shot.
Wow.
But, you know, when I picked a jury in the voir dire, you know, it was, you know, tell me about your background. What do you think of this? And it's this nonverbal communication. It's the body language, you know, and during the trial, I'm trying to figure out, did I lose him? Did I lose her? Do I need to focus more? You know, it's gut instinct. These people have more than that. You know, I was fortunate. I mean, I won cases. So, you know, and plus I knew to put proof where my allegations were.
Yeah.
That's how they do it. And then in this book, He Killed Them All, about Robert Durst, he came in, his wife is missing. He brings in a magazine in New York City to the NYPD and says, my wife disappears. I think she took off with her boyfriend. And the magazine is his father, who's one of the richest men in New York City. And so it kind of set the tone with the PD. You know, it's crazy stuff.
Wow. Yeah. I keep seeing images of Joan of Arc coming to mind as you talk, like, you know, just armor and shield, and like, you know, this is a privilege for me. I'm really enjoying this as much as I know the people watching are.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right. So James from Washington, how do you think ethics and morality can be taught while history and Western civilization are being extinguished? The great and famous freshman course at Stanford University called Western Civilization, the awesome Western Civ, was dismantled in the 1970s. So the question was, how do you think ethics and morality can be taught while history and Western civilization are being extinguished?
It can't be. You can't teach ethics and morality when you eliminate the history of Western civilization. Because the reason, and I could be wrong, I don't know. I mean, I don't suggest that I'm an expert in any way, but just first impression. If they want to get rid of the history of the Western civilization, that tells me you're getting rid of the truth. And people who don't know history are bound to repeat the mistakes of history. So whatever ethics and morality you're looking to teach, why is it denying the truth, whether it's good or bad? I mean, history is history. You know, you can't deny the past. So are you denying it so that you can create your own truth and your own morality and your own equity? You know, it's like the 1619 Project and with the New York Times, where America is a nation that was born of, you know, has as its genesis a racist nature, and that everything we do is opportunistic and is intended to discriminate against people. No, I believe that the 1776 Project that the president is promoting is promoted as recently as this week, where we learn about American history, you know, the good and the bad, but there's a lot of good. There's a reason people come to the United States. There's a reason that they risk their lives to come here, because this is the greatest nation on earth. And there's a reason they kick and scream if we try to send them home to their home country. They want to stay here. And the history of this country cannot be denied. And if you eliminate that and you create and you try to teach morality and ethics, I don't know how you do that. What do you use as an example? And again, I'm not sure if that answers the question.
I think it does. Love this question from Rosie from Bristol, United Kingdom. You've been a hero of mine for a long time, and I've learned so much from you. I have 2 questions for you. What? Yes, still signing. 2 questions. What advice would you give to your 21-year-old self? And what do you think is the most important lesson to teach a child?
The most important lesson that I would tell to my 21-year-old self, Rosie, and that's a very interesting question, is, don't sweat the small stuff. I think we waste a lot of our time, especially if you're a competitive person, and I guess I was at that age. I should have had a few more laughs along the way. I mean, I love to laugh. I laugh a lot. But I should have just said, I had a lot of trouble in the beginning because men didn't want me in the position that I was in. So the first homicide that I went to, and I was the first woman to have homicide duty. I mean, and homicides only occur at night, like at 3 a.m. So they call my house, and my husband answers, and they want to speak to him. And he says, "No, I'll give you my wife." And they say, "No, we want to speak to the assistant DA." He said, "That's my wife." They said, "No, not the assistant to the DA." It was a back and forth.
Wow.
Long story short, I finally get on the phone. I get the address because no one was used to a woman, and there were 43 different police departments in this county. So I go to the scene, and they stop me, and I take out my badge. I'm so proud of myself. And they said, "You're the homicide, really?" So, and I'm somewhat petite, and I just took a lot of it to heart. Meanwhile, the guy was a drug dealer. They drove over him, backed up over him, drove over him again. It was a pretty ugly scene, and he was kind of in the mud. And I could take that, and it's still like at one point they kind of all walked away from me, and I was like in the dark by myself. Don't sweat the small stuff, Jeanine. Okay, now what would I tell my children?
Yeah.
Do not lie. Do not steal. Do not cheat. Never, ever change that. Never sell yourself or your morals. That's the one thing that can never change. Wow. And I got to tell you, my kids, the 2 of them, my daughter's a partner in a big Manhattan law firm. She's an equity partner. And my son works for an Australian real estate company. And they are very ethical in what they do. They listened. They listened. And I'm very fortunate that they did.
I've got 4 kids, Judge Jeanine. And when I get home, I'm going to look them in the eyes and I'm going to say, "Don't you lie to me."
No, don't scare them.
Don't you ever lie to me. I love, but I'm interested, I've only seen movies, Gotham City or something, the person shows up, flashes the badge on the crime scene, right? Yeah. Has to step in and make decisions. Is that sort of, you were that character? And
I was that character. Yeah, my first book was, Punish and Protect, but the second book was Sly Fox. It's fiction, but it's about me. Wow. And Sly Fox is about this young woman who was in the appeals bureau, as I was.
Yeah.
Because I was law review. So I guess they figured, what do you do with women in the office? Put her in the appeals bureau. Yeah. And it was 1975. Okay. So yeah, I'm no spring chicken. I told you that. Stop adding up the years. So another page. So I remember sitting with the guys for lunch in the DA's office, and they would all talk about, and I'd like pull up a chair, and sometimes they kind of let me in. And I pull up a chair and they'd say, I've got night court. I don't want to do it. And I got a date. I got that, because we were all young. And I remember saying to one guy, "How about I handle your night court?" Now, this is before they had the computers and all that stuff. You would just write it on the file. So I said, "How about I handle your night court?" He said, you can't handle night court. It's a trial. What do you know about trials? I
Wow.
said, let me do it. Let me do it. Please, please let me do it. So he said, you don't say anything. You put my name on the file. I did. I went up there and I tried my first case alone, and I won it that night. It was like a night court case. And I won it, and I came back, and for about, I think it was about a year, I took all their cases. I go up county, down county, anywhere they had night court, Jeanine was there. And then the chief assistant found out about it, and he went nuts. Who told you you could try cases? I said, Mr. Fussell, how do you know? He said, I know. One of the judges called him. And so he said, how did you don't know how to try a case. I said, Mr. Fussell, I read all your transcripts and appeals. I learned everything from your transcripts. You were brilliant. And I won every one of them because of you. You know, that was a sly fox there.
Whoa.
So, yeah.
You know, yeah, we get the impression that we're in this modern technological advanced society, and yet only in the 70s were people still looking at women going, what the heck are you doing here? Like, aren't you supposed to be preparing the guy that should be here's dinner?
Yep.
And you're showing up trying to break new ground. That's
Yep.
so inspiring to hear that. It's really
well,
neat.
I'll tell you, I mean, even when I was the first woman judge, I mean, the judges would all go to lunch and they wouldn't invite me, you know, and then they only had one judge's bathroom, and it was for the men. So I couldn't use it. So I had to use a public bathroom, and I just sentenced all the defendants to jail, or their families are in there crying because they're going to jail. And here I am in my robe. You know, yeah, it's a lot of fun, I got to tell you.
For all you lady judges out now, you can thank Judge Jeanine.
I don't know about that.
Using the bathroom way down the hall for you, ladies.
Yeah.
You.
Yep.
Okay, so Anthony from California, what would you say to the young conservatives today?
Number one, I'm proud of you. Number two, don't change, and don't get out of the ring. You are in a ring right now. There is a fight going on in this country. You have an obligation to carry forward the beliefs and the truths of the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution. You are our only hope. I don't believe that young people who are protesting, destroying buildings, cursing out cops, I don't believe that they have any role to play in our government, and we cannot allow that. They have to be sanctioned. You, as far as I'm concerned, you are blessed to have the ability to differentiate between what they're saying and what you believe in. So just stay the course. Stay the course. Don't give up. And you know what? If people don't believe you, that's their problem. Get the book. There's a lot of footnotes in the book, and you'll be able to, go back at them with all of the arguments that they're making. Don't believe the news. The mainstream media wouldn't even talk about the Abraham Accords, something that we haven't seen in decades, a peace deal between Israel, the UAE, Israel and Bahrain, Serbia and Kosovo. The mainstream media is not on your side. They're on the side of the left and power, and you're on the side of truth and justice.
You mentioned it in your book. Did you say, are there some typical arguments that you give counters to?
Yeah. There are arguments that I give counter to about the pandemic, and about the about obviously about the shutdowns, and about the protesters and what they're protesting and who they are. Yeah. I mean, they're saying they're peaceful protesters, and they're denying that they're violent. Let me tell you something. I have a radio show too, and in New York City, I go in on Sunday mornings. They have so destroyed the wishes and the hopes of so many Americans that in New York City, the stores that were closed down after the pandemic are a double closed down because of the protest. And when I went in last Sunday morning to do my show, I think it was 2-3 Sundays ago, there was a guy walking along the street, and he had on a hoodie, and he's drinking out of a bottle, but there's a paper bag over the bottle, and he doesn't have pants on, and he doesn't have shoes on. He's just walking around with no pants on. It's like a third world country. And de Blasio, hates the police, defunded them by $1 billion. Crime is going up. And he said in the beginning, when they said, you're going to turn this back to the 80s, he said, no, we're going to push back on the criminals. Really? Stop lying to me. You're going to push back on the criminals? You just took away the police who can push back on the criminals.
Yeah.
And by the way, criminals are emboldened. They're putting their guns in their waistband. They know police are afraid to touch them.
You have a chapter as looked like an antidote to defund the police. It was called something?
Defend the police.
Yeah.
You know, the number of African Americans killed by the police last year, I think, was 8. And they would have you think that this is something that is an epidemic going on across the country. It's not. And let me tell you something. I went down to the in Washington, D.C., and I forget which organization, it may have been the FBI, and they had a crash course where you are kind of interactive dealing with a possible crime scene, and you have a gun, it's a fake gun. And within seconds, you had to figure out whether you were going to shoot or be shot.
Wow.
And if you put yourself into one of those situations, you will be stunned. Even if you wait to think, you can be killed. And I've got to find that. I got to put it on my website as to how bad it is. Police they're being spit on. They were being hosed down in New York City 2 years ago. It's been a total disrespect. They're being denigrated, and they give their lives for us for no reason other than they believe in law and order.
Yeah. Bridget from Fort Worth, Texas asks, would you ever accept a SCOTUS appointment in your career? Love your spunk, heart, knowledge, and intelligence.
Well, thank you. I mean, that would be an honor, but I wouldn't be offered one because I don't have 30 years to put on the bench. And the president is a friend, as I've said. You know, I've known him for almost 35 years, 34 years. No, he's looking for younger women in their 30s, like Allison Rushing, in their 40s, you know, candidates who've got 30 to 40 years to put on the bench. So I don't think it would happen. And, you know, I'm grateful. I thank God I was on the bench. I did, you know, I was a judge. I mean, being a judge on the Supreme Court is the citadel of the practice of law. It is the Supreme Court is that shining city on the hill of the lawyers and courtrooms and the law. But it won't happen. But thank you for the thought. I appreciate it.
Chris asks, do you think Trump will win in November?
Without a doubt, Trump's going to win. Here's the problem. With the mail-in ballots, and all of a sudden we need mail-in ballots. They are counting ballots apparently after election night. So what does that mean? That means that we're not going to know on election night. They're going to be counting ballots. There are going to be disagreements. And there's going to be court cases, and you know it's going to be crazy. And that's one of the reasons why it's so important for the president to appoint a justice as soon as possible, so that the Supreme Court is at full complement. You know, the president has that right. Senator McConnell has said that he will push to move that nomination to a Senate confirmation, and there's no reason to dilly-dally. And the people who are saying, like Joe Biden, leave it up to the people in the next election. Who said, Joe? Who said, leave it to the people? The people don't elect a Supreme Court. The president nominates someone to the Supreme Court. And the president is not yet done with his term. He's the president for all 4 years. And the truth is that there's no way to suggest that this president won't be there for another 4 years. You know, and they're trying to say, well, this senator said this and this senator said that they would. I don't care what they said. The Constitution says this, the president says that, and the Senate Majority Leader says that. End of the story.
And for those tuning in, a reminder, you can get her what I'm sure is a firecracker of a book, Don't Lie to Me, at premiercollectibles.com/don't lie. And of course, you know, it's the web, so don't put an apostrophe in the word don't. It's just /don't lie. Grammatically
really?
Incorrect, if you will.
Really? Is that how they do it?
Yeah, no apostrophes.
Okay. Good to know.
How can we get factual news out to United States citizens?
Well, I am disappointed that the mainstream media is has gone so far left. It's hard to get factual news. You have to read a lot. You have to be careful what you're reading. Um, and, be careful of the internet as well. A lot of people say, I get all my news from Facebook. Well, we're not so sure that what Facebook is doing, who they're taking off, who they're putting on. I think you have to listen and you have to make sense of it. CNN and MSNBC, I've never seen stations more focused on anti-Trump or anti-president rhetoric. I mean, at least with Fox, and Fox has opinion, so it's like me, Hannity, Tucker, and but the news part of Fox has all kinds of Democrats, smart Democrats that go back at the Republicans. It's the only station where they have both sides. So, like, they have Donna Brazil is a Fox contributor, Juan Williams, Marie Sharf, and I forget the other one's name, but there are a lot of them who come on. We have Democrat senators and Congress people. Fox is very, very much trying to go down the middle, and it certainly is doing a better job than any of the other stations.
Ron from Fairview, Tennessee writes, what do you think is President Trump's greatest achievement?
That's an interesting question, Ron. I think his greatest achievement was the economy until the pandemic came through, because that gives people hope. When you can work, when you have a job, you have a sense of self and confidence. You can take care of your family, your wife, your girlfriend, your children, whoever it is, your husband, it doesn't matter. There's pride in America when we can work, when jobs are not outsourced to China and other countries. I think that was huge. And, what do they call them? Animal instincts or animal. I'm not an economist, but there's a certain term that they use. People were satisfied during those years, like it was 90% or something crazy with their lives. I mean, for a president to be able to get Americans to feel good about themselves, to give them jobs, to have food on the table, to provide a military that can protect us, I think that's huge. I also think, though, that what he has done for the military, building it up, is helping us in ways that we'll never know, because other countries understand that we're not someone who can be trifled with anymore. You could trifle with Obama, who went around, and I'm sure Joe Biden will go around apologizing for being American, which is so disgusting to me. But that's not happening with President Trump. And one of the things, I interviewed the president about a week and a half ago, and I said to him, Mr. President, there is talk that on election night, there's going to be riots if a winner is named and that winner is you, although I suspect the chances of that happening are slim to none with these, the left's latest attempt to mess up this election. I said, what will you do? And especially in states that won't ask for the National Guard. And of course, the National Guard has to be requested before he can send them in. He said, Jeanine, if it gets bad enough, we'll handle it. I said, well, what are you going to do? And he said, insurrection. And that's what I think Americans need to hear. He's not doing it now. He said, we don't need it now. But if they get crazy and they start trying to kill people and burn streets, and, just like AOC today, well, in talking about the president and Mitch McConnell, you're playing with fire. What does that mean? Is that a threat from AOC? And Mitch McConnell and Nancy Pelosi saying, hey, we're thinking about impeaching the president, impeaching Bill Barr. How dare you? You work for the American people. How about you start working for the American people and stop worrying about raw political power? Stop lying to us about what's being done. You say they're all peaceful. You hear about a pandemic, and I write about this in the book. You hear about a pandemic, and Nancy's like, everybody go to Chinatown. Let's ignore that stuff. The same on the East Coast. Everybody go to Chinatown. That's a month after the president closed the borders and declared a national emergency. Joe Biden is so out of it that in March he had a rally, to the extent Joe Biden can have a rally, in March. And then he says, I will protect Americans better than Donald Trump. Anyway, I think I veered from the initial question, but anyway.
But it's beautiful nonetheless. Folks, again, the book is Don't Lie to Me. I don't know why I need to point at the camera when I say it. It's just so, it's so bold and so clear, and I just love it.
Thank you.
Don't lie to me.
Yep. And and by the way, the book is also available in audio tape or CD.
Who's
and, you know, it's my voice. I read it. So
well, you read the book. How do you go from radio show to TV show to live signing? I mean, when are you reading audiobooks at 2 or 3?
I love it. I love it because then I can really put an oomph in the words. You know, it's not just, you know, words on paper. Then I can, here's another page, everybody. Yeah. You know, I like it. It's my book. It's my words. And I've read the last 3 books. So 4 books, actually. The last 4 books I've read. I like that.
Yeah. Well, we're going to change gears here, and we'd love to ask you 22 questions in 2 minutes. And if you go over 2 minutes, it's your live signing. That's your prerogative. But
okay, so how about I just stick with 1, and then you won't be able to ask me the other 21.
Well, let's see how far we get. How about that?
Okay, good.
All right. Where were you born?
Elmira, New York.
Who would you want to play you in a movie?
Me.
Yeah. What was your first job?
My first job was working in a dairy in upstate New York, and I saw cows and calves being born, and I made a lot of banana splits in the dairy.
Nice. What is your biggest fear?
I don't have a fear.
I
think my biggest fear, it would be America turning into a socialist country.
Well, who makes you laugh the most?
You know what I do at night? I listen to Rodney Dangerfield.
Really?
I go on my little iPad and I listen to Rodney Dangerfield. I just love to laugh. Everybody I see humor in everything.
Yeah. What is one thing you need to have in your fridge at all times?
Well, besides water, green apples.
Green apples?
Yeah, green apples.
That's why we asked this. Who would have known?
Yeah.
That you're a green apple gal?
Yep.
Great name to a next book, by the way, Green Apple Gal.
Yeah.
Who is the most interesting person you met recently? Any live signing hosts or anything? No one you can, you know?
I can think of a lot of people. You know, I think some of the most interesting people I've met, and I'm going to make a turn here. My mom was in hospice in my home in the room right above us, and she passed last year. The most interesting people I met were the people who work for hospice. They were like angels.
Yeah.
It was so interesting, so different.
Yeah. I had a mother figure pass as well. And
so hard.
Being, very difficult. And being there with literal angels on earth.
Yes, that's what they are.
I experienced what you are talking about.
That's what they are.
And it was life-changing too. There's no words to describe when someone is transitioning like that, to have the right kind of care, the right type of mentality, the right spirit in the room. It's very special. Yeah. What is your greatest accomplishment?
Well, it would be my children, having raised 2 beautiful children, but the next thing, becoming district attorney. I will never forget that. I remember the next morning jumping out of bed screaming. It was a dream, an ambition, the best job I ever had. And I will go to my grave saying that.
I love that. What is your middle name?
Well, Ferris. My maiden name is Ferris. So it's Jeanine Pirro.
What is your biggest pet peeve?
When people lie to me.
Don't lie to me. What is the last book you read besides Don't Lie to Me?
I am reading a book now on what the heck it is about. I forget the name of it, but it's about stem cells, and it's kind of a scientific book, and how the stem cells work from the placenta and not from not the embryonic stem cells, and you know how to deal with aging, that kind of thing.
What is your favorite hobby?
Soul Cycle.
What is your guilty pleasure?
I don't feel guilty. Dark chocolate all the time.
I heard that. Do you have any hidden talents?
I'm a cook. I'm a good cook. And I have two beautiful standard poodles. They're my babies. Yeah, that's about it. I love to cook. What else?
What color is your toothbrush?
White.
What is your secret snack?
Dark chocolate. I hide it from myself.
How do you take your coffee?
In the pantry. I go and I eat it. I said, Jeanine, there's no one here. Eat it.
How do you take your coffee?
With cream and sugar, but they don't want me to drink a lot of it, so I have to drink decaf, which really is very disappointing.
It's very annoying.
Yes.
What is the last movie you saw in theaters, if you remember theaters?
I don't know, but I just saw the movie Fatima, about the three little girls in Portugal who saw the Virgin Mother. And then the last movie, I don't remember. I Netflix binge. So let me tell you, Hell on Wheels. Oh, I loved it. And then there's a bunch of others that I watched, but whatever. Go ahead.
What cause is dear to your heart?
Animal shelters, you know, and protecting animals. And I have a friend who just protected 3 this weekend from the lowlands in South Carolina. So yeah, love animals, rescue them.
What is number 1 on your bucket list?
I have to go to Prague. I've been there, but I want to see the City of Prague Philharmonic in Prague.
Oh, wow. Similar question. Where do you want to go that you've never been? Prague?
Well, I've been to Prague. So okay. I would like to go to, where would I've been to a lot of places. Where would I want to go? I've been to Australia. I've been, I don't know. Where do you think I should go?
I know where you shouldn't go. I can think of about 10 places.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking too. I love Italy. I love the Amalfi Coast.
I'm gonna say Spain. Italy is personally for me where I'm gonna recommend anybody go.
Yeah, I've been there, both of them. Turkey, Lebanon, Israel. I'm of Lebanese descent, Lebanese Christian. Yeah, and I guess the one place I haven't been would be maybe. Oh, Africa. I want to go to Africa on a safari. Africa. Yeah. That's what I want to do on the bucket list.
Beautiful. Well, that's all the time we have to order Judge Jeanine's limited edition autographed book signed by her hand. Go to premiercollectibles.com/don't lie. And to be a part of the live signing experience with more of your favorite authors, follow Premier Collectibles on Instagram or Facebook. And Judge Jeanine, from all of your friends watching who've tuned in and from all of us at Premier Collectibles, thank you so much for being here. This has been so fun.
And thank you to all those people who are watching. I wish I could hear from you more. Thanks so much. And thank you.
Yes. Have a good one. Take care.